Hey, what's poppin' YouTube? My name's Gray, you're watching Consoletronix, where today I set sail on the good ship Saga back to the choppy waters of the 32-bit era with a look at some of the best exclusive titles for Sega's underpowered but plucky successor to the Mega Drive, the Sega Saturn. Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2 were excellent on-rail shooters with character and level designs by French comic book legend Mobius. For part 3, Sega went in a different direction for the franchise and turned it into a sprawling RPG in Panzer Dragoon Saga. If the Saturn had one claim to fame, it was that it was home to some truly fantastic role-playing games, many of which unfortunately never left the land of the rising sun. Panzer Dragoon Saga is easily in the top tier of the genre with its fantastic presentation and storyline. Sadly, Sega have no plans to re-release this standout Saturn title on current systems, but if Shenmue can be brought back from oblivion, maybe we shouldn't give up hope of a HD release of Saga someday. A treasure! The Japanese studio, consisting of ex-mistreated Konami employees, became the Sega equivalent to Rare over at Nintendo as they released some fantastic Mega Drive exclusives like Gunstar Heroes and Alien Soldier. So a lot was expected from them as Sega looked for games to kickstart the Saturn's campaign against the PlayStation. And boy did Treasure hold up to their end of the bargain with this seminal multi-plane medieval beat-em-up, Guardian Heroes. It's hard to see what the fuss is about with this game from just watching. You really need to try it for yourself. If you haven't already, you won't be disappointed. All but forgotten Japanese developer Warp garnered a lot of critical acclaim for their first breakout hit, D, an atmospheric cinematic adventure starring Laura, a digital actress. Warp hoped to make her as big as Lara Croft would become. It didn't quite work out, as studio head Kenji Eno hoped, but a disagreement between him and the head of Sony resulted in Eno making the follow-up to D, Enemy Zero, again starring Laura, a Sega Saturn exclusive. But by this time it was already too late to fight against the inevitable PlayStation domination of the industry. Not a game for everyone, but definitely one worth checking out. One of the last hurrahs for the Saturn and the final European release before the system was unceremoniously discontinued. Deep Fear is a Resident Evil inspired underwater horror with a lot to recommend, but is perhaps best remembered for the unintentionally hilarious voice acting, which has to be seen to be believed in some places. But if you could put aside such niggles, you will be treated to one of the better survival horror games of the era. The third installment in the Mega Drive tactical role-playing series makes the step up to 32 bits in triumph. Now, while JRPGs might receive some funny looks from gamers today because of the inherent quirkiness of the character designs and random battles, but back in the mid to late 90s they were the hottest acts in town, thanks to high-profile releases such as Final Fantasy VII, Grandia, and any working design title you care to mention. Shining Force 3 is fantastic, but it's not the whole game, as it was split over 3 scenarios in Japan, with only the first being released in the West. Still one I recommend though. Those boys at Treasure are at it again. Having released Silhouette Mirage, a fantastic platformer, Treasure decided to dip their toes into the cutthroat world of shoot-em-ups and crafted, for me at least, one of the finest examples of the genre. But back then, I expected nothing less from the Tokyo-based developers. Only released in Japan back then, this was number 1 on any self-respecting Saturn owner's list of must-have import games. Since then the game has seen wider release on Xbox Live and a sequel in the form of Ikaruga, a classic. And we come inevitably to one of the quintessential Saturn titles and candidate for one of my favourite games ever, Knights Into Dreams, a whimsical on-rails flying collect-em-up, probably best remembered now for the free Christmas edition Sega gave away when you bought either Knights, Virtua Fighter 2 or Virtua Cop 2 at Christmas in 1997. Sadly though, the world of video games is a cruel landscape, and Knights, despite wide industry praise, was stomped out by Mario's size 12 Italian boots, as it was up against Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot on the PS1. A limp sequel was released on the Wii in Journey into Dreams, but proved too little too late. A phrase that just about sums Sega up perfectly at this time. So there we have it folks, a look at some of the better examples of why the Sega Saturn should not be written off so easily, despite finishing a distant third behind the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. And if any of you would like to see a follow-up video looking at some more Saturn-y goodness, let me know in the comment section down below. I think my arm can be twisted. So all that's left is for me to say thank you very much for watching, and if you haven't already, why not subscribe? My name's Gray, you've been watching Consoletronix, and I'll see you again soon. Laters.